he went from being America's mayor after 9/11 to one of the most significant players in the Trump administration and one of the most polarizing. US political firebrand Rudy Giuliani joins me now to celebrate Thanksgiving. And Rudy, as you can imagine, got a lot to ask you about Trump and Biden and lots more. But first off, of course, you received that moniker of America's mayor for helping the nation rally after 9/11. And your actions that day certainly was something that heartened me, even on the other side of the world. And now, thanks to the Biden administration in part, we've seen the Taliban return to power in Afghanistan. Yeah. Do you feel that country is inevitably going to become a hotbed of terrorist activity again that could put the US and the UK at threat?
Yeah, I think there's no question of that. I think Biden's decision-making with regard to Afghanistan is probably one of the worst decisions ever made by an American president, and probably one of the most dishonorable. It's not so much that we pulled out. There was a way to do it. It had to be done gradually and with the kinds of conditions that Trump imposed on it. He did it gradually. He was getting there. And but Trump would listen to the generals when they said, oh, no. If you pull out too quickly, we're not going to be able to stabilize on time. Biden got it into his head that he had to have him out by September 11th. He wanted it was a political decision, not a national security decision, not a military decision. He wanted to be able to announce on September 11th, America's longest war is over. So he stupidly decides that in April, which now gives the Taliban and all of the terrorist groups there a wonderful window of all that time, knowing that we're going to leave to start capturing cities, which they did. And then when it became obvious that we weren't going to be able to hold that place, and his generals were telling that, here's the part that's almost impossible to describe. He took out the troops before he took out the civilians, which is exactly the opposite way that you would have evacuated. And that resulted in carnage.
It was a complete disaster. And carnage is the word for it. Carnage is the word for it. And look, you have been very critical of Biden, let's be completely honest. You say that his mental capacity is not up to being US president. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. Well, first of all, 56% of the American people now agree with that. So it isn't just me saying that. It is true. I said it over a year and a half ago on a podcast that I did with 2 American doctors. I didn't just say it. I went and had them examine him based on tapes of his going back 20 years. So they did comparisons of the way he spoke 5 years ago and the way he spoke today, of the pauses in his speech pattern, of the things that he forgets. And then they took out the DSM-5, which is the Bible of psychiatrists for defining mental illness. And they showed that he met, what was it, 8 or 7 of the 8 symptoms of at least moderate dementia, if not more advanced dementia. And since then, a year ago, he's gotten much worse. So I didn't just make that up. I mean, I had it sourced by doctors. There were at least another dozen doctors who said the same thing. They were just afraid to come on television.
He's fine, but it's weird, isn't it, when you see him unable to read an auto cue, unable to enter the right entrance of the White House. I mean, I'm concerned that this is the guy with the nuclear codes. It's genuinely quite terrifying.
Well, I mean, I've known him for 35 years personally. So it's not as if I don't know him. I met him probably longer than that. 1981, I worked with him on the crime bill very closely in 1994, when Republicans and Democrats used to work together. In fact, I probably authored that bill way back in the Reagan administration. And he was never the smartest guy. I mean, the joke always was he was the dumbest guy in the Senate. So, of course, you never know who really is the dumbest guy, but he got that label. So there's a little bit more difficulty in recognizing it because he's always said dumb things.
He's a nice
and he's always
man,
had a
though, isn't he?
Line.
He's a nice man.
Well, people think he's a nice man.
Is
Now,
he?
if you watch him getting angry at the press and you watch him turning his back and walking out, even in one case when he was campaigning, wanted to have a fist fight with someone,
Yeah.
you realize that's another symptom of dementia.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think he is a nice man, but it's this diminished mental capacity.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite sad to watch.
One of the symptoms.
Now, look, I want to talk about your role in the bid to expose Hunter Biden before the election.
Correct.
Of course, the mainstream media didn't want that to happen. The social media giants didn't want it to happen.
I knew it from day one.
And now you're even under investigation, aren't you, as a result of 2.5 years of your role? So is this an establishment attempt to discredit you, or did you do something wrong in your bid to expose Hunter Biden?
All I have to tell you is that they went and illegally got my iCloud account. And you know the first day they got it? The day I began representing Donald Trump. They have no interest in anything I did before that. I could have been the worst guy in the world before that. No problem. So they've been monitoring me now for 2.5 years, and they can't seem to find anything. So this is an investigation in search of a crime. And the frustrating part for them is I was a prosecutor for most of my life. I don't violate the law. I don't do it for moral reasons, and I don't do it because I'm not stupid. I'm not a stupid person. I'm pretty careful to pretty much make documents and records of what I do, and everything that they bring up, there are documents and records to prove, and all the things they're looking at are picayune. Did I register as a foreign agent? Well, I didn't have to because I was a criminal defense lawyer for someone, and I have an opinion from a lawyer saying that. That's the kind of thing we go through for 2.5 years. And meanwhile, we have Hunter Biden, who took millions of dollars from China, giving half of it to his father, admitting it on the hard drive, and they don't investigate. He says on the hard drive that over 30 years, he gave 50% of what he got to the senator and the vice president. As a former prosecutor, that's what you call a bribe.
Do you still represent Donald Trump now, Rudy? And what is your relationship like now?
I'm still his friend. I have been his friend for 32 years. I don't currently represent him because right now I'm representing myself and defending myself against these ridiculous charges. But I do continue to investigate the case. I have a podcast, rudyscommonsense.com. You can get it in all over the world. And I put out on that podcast all the things that the censored media prevents. For example, there was just a big disclosure in the United States of another deal of Hunter Biden's that got into like almost $1 billion with a Chinese company that makes vital material that could even be used for military purposes. It was disclosed in the New York Post and several other newspapers, not covered in any of the major newspapers. So my podcast will, broadcast.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's loads of way people can get information now, aren't there? The Dominion voting systems, they were also coming for you in a reported $1 billion defamation suit. Where does that stand now? Because there's been different reporting on this.
It really has gone nowhere yet. There hasn't even been.
Are you nervous? Are you worried?
Discovery. No, I'm not nervous at all. Everything that I said about the election is not me. It's supported by affidavits and statements from other people. I just recently had occasion to count them in order to send them into the Bar Association, and they're well over 350. Statements under oath, most of them, from people in various states, 5 different states, all explaining having seen either small incidents or very large incidents of voter fraud, like stuffing the ballot box with ballots they wouldn't let anybody see, or actually connecting ballot boxes to the internet, or throwing people out of the room and counting ballots, not knowing there was a surveillance camera that recorded the whole thing. That's the kind of evidence that I have. So I'm very comfortable that we'll be able to prove it what we got caught up in is the same hysteria that surrounded the hard drive. The media here will not allow you to say anything. Like if I were to go on television in America and explain his impaired condition, they'd probably censor it. Now, the strange thing is, 56% of the American people think he's impaired.
Yeah, there's
so
a big
getting the information.
And believe
kind of
me,
interesting to me.
Believe me, the media was more than happy to talk about what they considered Donald Trump's impaired state in the run-up to the last election. But look, Judy, I need to ask you about 3 big viral stories that got the world talking so that you can clear up what was really going on, okay? First, Sacha Baron Cohen. Now, he's obviously a very famous British comedian, and you were a big feature of his sequel to Borat.
Yeah, they completely edited it.
Because I was going to tell you, he implied that you had acted inappropriately in some way.
I did not at all act inappropriately. He did. In fact, he ran away. During that, when I became aware of what he was doing, and the document, I called the police, and he ran down the street in his robe, and he ran away. Okay. I'm so sorry for that. It was a completely doctored film. I had no idea that what they were doing, and they actually doctored the film even after they shot it. And I called the police on him. He didn't call the police on me.
So why not sue? Why not sue?
Because I'm a public figure, and to sue in the United States as a public figure, it's almost impossible to win. You have to prove deliberate lying. If he can say in any way that he made a mistake, it would be impossible. That's why Donald Trump doesn't sue. That's why, and that's why those people that are suing us are going to lose their case. Yeah, they're really doing it.
It's not worth it.
Not so much to win a case.
I agree with that. And the great thing about America is you can say what you think, and people can believe you and watch the film and judge for themselves. Now, the second one, Rudy, this image went all around the world. People were saying, "Is your face melting during this press conference?" Do you remember this? The makeup or what was happening? Was it hair dye? I feel for you because it looked very hot.
It was. I'm not used to wearing makeup, and it was very warm. And there you go. It was very. And I think I began sweating, and that was also at a time that I was kind of sick, I think. It was around the time I was getting sick.
Didn't you?
I don't remember exactly, but it was, I mean, I didn't know it was happening when it was happening.
Yeah. No, I feel for you. I feel for you about that.
If I recall correctly.
Yeah, no, of course.
That was during a COVID scare.
Yeah, exactly. Now, and you got through that fine, which is great.
I actually had a very bad case of it.
Yeah, you ended up in hospital, right?
With the help of the president.
Oh, really? What did he recommend?
Well, I got it a couple of days after him. It was really amazing. He just got over it. I had it, went to the hospital, and Regeneron was still an experimental drug at the time. He was like the 3rd person who took it, and I was probably the 10th. I was sort of on a list where they were going to experiment with it. Well, it turned out to be a tremendous medicine. And I had double pneumonia, and I was cured in about 4 days.
Wow.
And afterwards, I also got steroids. Afterwards, I felt, 10 years younger for a while.
Gosh, that's certainly how you want to get through COVID. And then secondly, Rudy, I've got to ask you about our royal family after this moment went viral.
She said, you did a wonderful job on September 11th. And therefore, I'm making you an honorary knight, commander of the Royal something or other. I turned out.
Rudy, some people got very angry about that. They got very angry about that.
I don't know why. I adore the Queen. I have a great respect for the Queen. I really am truly one of her admirers, not just because I'm an honorary knight, but I've always admired her. I think she's an enormously strong woman. I love Great Britain. It's one of my favorite places to go is London. I've once debated Boris Johnson on what's a better city, New York or London, about 6 years ago when he was mayor, 7 years ago. So it was it was a joke, but you're not allowed to tell jokes anymore.
No, you're not.
You're not trying to be funny.
You're not when the woke mob are around. And you mentioned Prince Andrew in that speech as well. Do you know him at all, Rudy? Because, of course, he spent a lot of time in New York. What's he like?
I know him because he is the one who came to my office during that September 11 period and told me that the Queen wanted to honor me and Bernie Kerik and Tom Von Essen. And I was quite honored and really impressed. And then, of course, he was there at not only the ceremony, but the party that we had after. So I got to know him during that period of time. And, my relationship with him, he's a very nice guy. The rest of the stuff, I can't tell you. Who knows with all the stuff that's going on, what it is, I don't like to express opinions on things I don't know about. All I can tell you, my experience with him he's like a regular guy.
And finally, Rudy, it is the question we all want to know. Has Donald Trump told you if he is going to run again? Because if you look at the polls in all of the swing states, he's well ahead of President Biden in a fantasy matchup.
Well, he hasn't told himself that yet. I mean, so I'll tell you exactly what his state of mind is. I think it's pretty. I think he's a very open guy, so I think it's pretty accurate what he's saying. Maybe I can help you this way. If the election were held right now, today, I have no doubt he'd run. I don't know if he would say that. I'm telling you that. I would say that, assuming that he feels up to it, and right now he's in tremendous health, assuming that the family is all okay with it, I would say the odds are that he will do it. But it's not 100%. It is 2 years from now. Who knows what's going to happen, either to him, his family, the other candidates. There's some of the other people in the race he admires tremendously. So if he couldn't run or wasn't able, I don't think he'd feel. I think he'd feel we would still win. But I think we all believe we would have the best chance of winning with him. Also, it's a strange thing. I had this happen to me. I lost my first race for mayor. Person who succeeded me was a disaster. The city went up to the highest crime rates ever, 2 riots, all kinds of civil disorder. It almost elected me. It was like people go back and say, gee, maybe I made a mistake.
Yeah.
And you almost get drafted into doing it because you were the alternative to the guy who really screwed up. I think that's what's going on right now. I mean, he's beating him by 12, 15% now.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.